Number 5. Hi, Agnes here with my 5th letter in my installment of Letters to Agnese research project. Once again, this is a research project into what a first pregnancy, would have been like for my persona in Calais, France in 1562. Specifically in Agnes's case, she was born in Florence, Italy, so the Florentinian influences are definitely going to show in how she goes about her pregnancy. As we know, every pregnancy is different and unique to the woman going through it, so it may have changes from other things you may have heard about during that time. The letters draw from primary sources, actual letters of women to other women about matters of pregnancy, specifically mothers and daughters or granddaughters and grandmothers. And I researched through those to get the actual tone right of these letters so they would sound like a real piece that could have been written then. The letters are completely wordsmithed by myself, and they are referenced again with extant sources and peer-reviewed journals. So I'm going to go through the second letter, or the 5th letter in this installment overall, and talk about it a little bit. Now, the letter before this, the 4th, has a date that comes after this letter. Does that mean they're out of order? No. Intentionally, I read the later dated letter before this letter because post is going to come at different times, different ships, different carriers. You may get letters out of order. That would have been a more period flavor. So in the telling of the letters, I'm going to actually present them to you with one slightly out of order to kind of get the feel that Agnese would have gotten, that maybe one letter after came before, or they're out of order. She's just happy for this contact at the time. So let's start for her letter of 17th September 1562 in the city of Calais. It's coming to her from her grandmother Leonarda in Florence. Dearest granddaughter Agnese, this morning I was presented and unfolded your letter of 13 August, where you posed questions of matters concerning your condition and seeking my advice, as your mother was only one of the 5 children I gave your grandfather. I have indeed heard of women requiring a sedan chair when with child, but you are correct in your thought. It is not common outside of great families. In response to your second inquiry, I have found in my book a recipe of pasta. I had made it for you as a child when you had problems of the chest. It should ease your cough that you spoke of. I pray God keep your health, Leonarda. All right, so let's take this letter apart piece by piece and see why the phrasing is so deliberate. So, dearest granddaughter Agnese, this once again is copied from Maria de Medici's letters. She likes to call her children dearest, illustrious, beloved. It's very common to note in the familial letters. You see this reoccurring, especially in the Florentinian area of the time. So the morning she was presented a letter. In the letters of Maria Salviati de Medici, she talks about her letters being presented instead of delivered. So this little bit of turn of phrase was something I wanted to put in there to give it more of that authentic flavor of someone at the time. So letters of the period were indeed folded over. Sometimes each panel would be a writing service. Sometimes they were folded in on themselves and sealed shut. In the Metropolitan Museum of Art, there is a painting of a young Francesco de Medici holding such a letter. And in studying the letter, when I went to the Met, I noticed the folding. I bought the book. This is a really great book. They had an exhibition, the Medici Portraits and Politics. And so in that, and looking at it, sent me down a whole side path about how our letters sent at the time, what did they look like. So there's definitely these folds in it. And I wanted to put that in there too, to give those little details that may seem like a throwaway, actually have their own separate research done to, again, make it more authentic in its sound. So her mother's only one of 5 children that would have been had by Leonarda, also very common in the time. And so a woman requiring a sedan chair when with child is something that is mentioned specifically in 1601 by the Grand Duchess Christine of Lorraine. And so she's talking to her expectant daughter in letters, following other Medici lore and things that she's heard of, advising her to hire trained men to carry a sedan chair and to wear low-soled shoes. So this is in a paper on the contributions of Medici women to medicine in the Grand Ducal Tuscany. And it was really interesting to me that this was a thing. Women were carried about when pregnant so they would not fall and injure their pregnancy. In some of my other researches, there's just a lot of prayers and poultices and whatnot for falls, and what to do if you fell and how to protect that pregnancy. So, Agnes may have heard about this. It's a little bit after, it's about 40 years after the time of this letter, but looking back, the practice seems to definitely predate 1601. So it's plausible that it could have been mentioned by her as something she heard someone else talk about being done. And perhaps, when Christine of Lorraine was having her own children, she had it done. So they're kind of contemporaries at this point. I wanted to put that in there. And so, but it would have been common, right? So Agnes is well off. Her family is well off, but we're not, duchesses. Okay, this is not something that's going to be every day. I like to think of it as, the $4,000 stroller you hear about today, or, carrying thing. Like, women, when pregnant, may look at these very expensive things that are offered and be like, it's not my budget, but we know that it occurs. So in her inquiry, obviously Agnes is a little bit sick. She asks about her book, her grandmother's book. So it was common among literate women to have books where they kept culinary recipes, perfume recipes, advice on medical issues, and other things. So sort of like this household book of Mom Knows Best would have existed. So absolutely telling her grandma, I don't feel good. I miss you. Can you make the pasta you made when I was little? Totally something that can be traced to extant sources. And then she talks about the pasta easing her cough. So this is really an interesting thing. Here's where we get to an 11th century health manual written by Ibn Butlan, the Tacunium Sanitatis. Please excuse my pronunciation. I've had a stutter since I was little, and I'm working to overcome it. It comes out sometimes when I try and do other languages. So in this book, this period 11th century manual, it was very much well in circulation in 1562. It talks about different herbs and like what they treat, what not to treat, when to take them, how to have them. And amongst these different plants and things is pasta. It talks about pasta as its medicinal uses. It has these beautiful plates and beautiful illumination, and I would definitely suggest it to be looked at for anybody. Like, if I did scroll work, I would want to look at this book because it's just beautiful illustrations and some really interesting insights into herbal use of the time. And so she again ends, I pray God keep your health. This is another closing that was used in an extant letter that was taken to add to that phrasing to make the overall document of the letters have the right tone. Again, these letters are a vehicle to convey this larger body of knowledge that was collected over time instead of doing a research paper, because I wanted something that can be consumed in bite sizes, can be maybe read in an event or taken to look at later, something to give people sources. For example, perhaps somebody is interested in, the Medici and wants to talk about paper folding. Maybe that source could be of use to them. So that was just sort of the thought process of how to take research in a research project and have it distilled into a more usable bite-size portion for the consumer. All right, so that ends our 5th letter installment. I will be tuning in soon with the 6th, and we will wrap up this 2nd trimester bundle of letters and get on to the final part of the pregnancy. What happens to Agnes? What happens to the baby? What about Leonarda? Stay tuned.